Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now.
What's happening? Happy Monday, Mr. Aaron Farley. How you doing this morning, sir?
It's good. I'm doing well.
Awesome.
I was just saying we have a snow day. Second snow day in a row.
It's
so
exciting.
I didn't think it's been so mild. The weather has been so mild from November till now that I think we had like just a dusting of snow.
That was enough to call snow day.
Before that, we had only had a dusting of snow in like the last 3 months. And usually we get like at least a couple snowstorms. And so the kids were kind of bummed and like, oh, and then now this new storm LA got the worst of it. It's
we
like
got all
flooding.
the water and the rain and the things.
You guys everyone's getting flooded out.
Yeah, but, we're lucky here.
We didn't get as much.
We're right at the
rain.
foothills and we didn't get too bad. I saw some areas, checked in on some friends. Everybody seemed more or less like they were good. We had
Your area is kind of built for flood, you're used to getting the water.
I think they had a lot of bad floods like in the 20s and 30s. Yeah. There's like giant flood channels kind of all up around the foothills here. Yeah. So it seems like they're, somebody learned something many decades ago and prevented that from ever happening.
When we were in
again.
Altadena, that's what it was like too. There were like those big flood channels everywhere, and we never had issues, and all of that water ran to where it was flat, and then everybody got flooded out at the bottom of the hill.
It's wild. I've done so much water thinking and researching and just trying to understand water and Southern California water. It's really, it's a head scratcher. I mean, I think ideally it would be, floodplains. And it wouldn't, the LA River wouldn't be concreted over. It would just be rocks and mud and whatever. But you'd have to have at least 500 to 1,000 feet berm on both sides of the river, which would allow for those areas to flood and be fertile. And you could almost have gardens, farms, all kinds of things. Whatever would be some kind of natural sort of thing. But then. But I don't know. Maybe it's idealistic too. Maybe I'm seeing with rose-colored glasses. But then there's the real estate idea. Of having acres and acres of just area around the LA River that goes through downtown. Some of the most expensive, real estate in the country. It's like insane that nobody.
Yeah, Randy. What I'm going to need you to do is to think more like a developer, please. This is getting a little out of hand.
Yeah,
and
we're leaving this whole billions of dollars
keeping water in the aquifer and finding ways to keep the water instead of shooting it out to the ocean is really working hard against my bottom line. And I'm not enjoying this. Yeah. Not enjoying this at all.
Yeah.
There's a reason we concreted it so it could go as fast as possible to the ocean. Yeah. Get out of my area where I'm building houses.
The aquifer, underneath the city, so we could actually have water throughout the year. And so, but it's cool. Well, we're just going to go ahead and cut giant canyons off of the Colorado River up near Wyoming, and we're just going to take that water down here. I think I plenty of it up there. It's melting.
It makes a lot more sense. A lot more sense to truck pipe water in from hundreds and hundreds of miles away
versus
than it does to figure out a way to keep the water here.
Well, and that's what's hard too about the people are like, oh, cool, there's so much rain, the drought must be over, and it's like, well, the rain's not really always where you need it. You kind of need it like up north, or you actually need the snowpacks, further up in Colorado, because that's now where our water source is. Our water source is not local. We don't use any local water for anything. Yeah, so it's just designed. Those systems designed for scarcity, and then when there's an abundance, it's not really like. I think everyone's trying their best to figure out ways to either capture rainwater, but we're playing off of a 100-year-old game of Army Corps of Engineers projects that were built well, and
Yeah.
you know, to have to change that, it's not easy. The infrastructure's been set for
I mean,
by
they've been
people.
trying
Like all
for
the best
years.
thinking was done in the 1930s, right? We all know that.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's no bad ideas back then. No, Michelle deals with a lot of like water issues in the LA River stuff all the time, and it's kind of mind blowing how slow, because the LA River is actually federal, right? Because it's the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah.
So it's actually federal, so that you can't just do anything necessarily local. You have to go through all the steps of getting the federal government, and you know, you screw that up and all of a sudden you flood Long Beach.
Well, I don't think that's what's
also
happening
a
on
bad
this
idea.
one, but yeah, but we could see what the potentiality for like shit to be messed up is.
Like, no, I got a great idea. Okay, let's do that one quick, and then you get the 100-year-old or 100-year rain or whatever that we get every 5 years.
Right. It seems to be happening more and more.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden half the city's flooded, and you're like, oh, well, oh, got it. Oh, I didn't take that into consideration. We'll see. I mean, speaking of,
man.
we could go into
that's our.
we could go into the art world
Joel
by
Kyack?
talking about Lauren. Well, with Lauren Bond, right? Like her dealing with the LA River and art projects. You went to her studio, right?
I like our water opening segments we have now. We talked about water fountains on last week's episode. Now we have water
bigger and bigger.
Conservation. You know, we're just kind of going.
We'll talk about seeding clouds later in this episode. Or I mean, in the next episode.
That's next week. Yeah. Let's leave ourselves somewhere to go.
Whether the government creates weather or not, that's next.
I think Taylor Swift creates the weather. Is what I've heard. Yes. She's more powerful than the government.
Of course.
Yeah.
All powerful.
Yeah. So what'd you think of Joel Kyack? Is this your first time hearing him?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said before, the whole like. I mostly knew Lightning Bolt from that area, and so to hear everything that was surrounding that band and the whole RISD situation, and Joel seems like he was one of the early adopters, right?
I think so.
He was there like a bit before everybody, or even him. Like I loved how he grew up in rural Pennsylvania, like a town of like 200 people or whatever.
Yeah. We had so much fun on tour with Joel. He had a story like every stop of the way, like with this last No Age tour that we did on the East Coast. Yeah. His solo project Dream Mega opened a lot of the shows, and he was just driving a Prius. I think it was just like his car, but it was like full of all of his gear, and he'd have to take it out every night.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of gear, but he would, like every stop or every time we would like run into him, like, this fucking guy, you fucking cut me off on the freeway, or this fucking guy had this fucking thing. And we're just like, I think Dean and I are pretty mellow, you know, in the van. We had our friend Bobby, shout outs, Bobby Berg, from Chicago. And we're all just, you know, probably listening to Bad Brains for 6 hours and stopping every once in a while to get a soda and go to the bathroom and then back in the van or something. But it's a pretty mellow, just nothing really happens. We show up like, oh, maybe we'll get some Thai food later. Yeah, why not? Okay, you know. And then Joel would come shot out of a cannon. It was great.
Bring the energy.
Have that energy. Yeah, it was always good. He always had a story. There's always so much excitement.
That Pennsylvania small town energy.
I think that's. I don't know. It might just be Joel Kyack special energy. I loved it. I think it was really fun, and it kind of kept us on our toes. And yeah, it was great though. But there was always stories, and he had stories about Fort Thunder in early days, and so when in general, I wanted to talk to him about all the different stuff he does because his art career is insane as well. Did you get a chance to look at his site and his CD and all the stuff?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I like the. I mean, I know the gallery that he's with, Francois Gebali.
Oh.
I'm assuming that's how you say it because that's how it's spelled, and it looks fancy in French. But it's a really amazing gallery that shows like interesting, like I mean, I think we talked about this in the last one too. It's like his work is not just like, oh, it's a cool sellable painting and he does these really amazing paintings but easily sellable. Like his stuff is like paintings and performance and sculpture and movable objects, and it looks like he's got one. I mean, right here, like this one constantly is plywood, resin, cinder blocks, hose, water, dye, pump, and hardware. That's like one of his sculptures.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then under that there's like a painting that has photographs, and then under that there's a huge installation. So it's like, I loved how he talked about art as being this kind of communication and performance. Like even his regular non-body performance work is like a performance. I like how he talked about that kind of like, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, of like art being, like you kind of have the commodified part of it, the business part of it, I guess, like music. You have the part that you have to sell and make money, and you have the part of the industry that probably that part of the industry pays for the other part of the industry. But that you also then have art as communication, and it's just like a different language. And that's why a lot of times, like for some of this art, that people go, I don't get it. And you're like, well, you never really you haven't learned the language yet. Once you start learning the language and seeing where this comes from and where that comes from, like even things that look completely ridiculous start to have more meaning. And you start realizing like, oh, I think it's ridiculous because I just don't know the language. And then once you get in there and you start seeing the little bits, and you notice how it's similar to other artists, maybe that gallery, other works like that. And, like his work is that way too, because even looking at it, I'm like, I don't even, what's going on here? There's like a bunch of knives cemented to a piece of wood.
Yeah.
But then you're like, okay, well, that's just one photo. And then it goes with this other photo that's like a spray painted palm tree coming out of a rocket. It's like, wow, what's going on here? But it seems very honest and like specific.
Yeah, I always think of there's a point of view, like there, you know what I mean? It comes from a person. This isn't just a random assemblage of things. So, but yeah, certainly there's intent, I guess. You can feel the intent, even if you can't parse out the meaning from the content, but the intent is there, that this is supposed to be happening this
Completely.
way.
And you can see also that, I mean, when he talks about Fort Thunder and RISD and them, like that whole group of people finding finding junk or getting into was it his where he talked about going into the mattress, like the mattress store that went out of business.
I forget.
And they
now,
like
blending together.
They broke into the mattress store, and because it had gone out of business, and they stole a bunch of repurposed a bunch of mattresses allegedly, and then they built the wrestling ring out of that. They put the mattresses down and then wrapped them, and then that was the base of the wrestling ring. But I feel like his artwork has a similar vibe of finding found objects incorporated into these like narratives, and it's not random. It seems like very put together, and there's something to say, but you probably don't know what until you really like dive into it, and then you can slowly see how things go together.
And I liked where too there was kind of a narrative, from sort of like figurative drawings, and it seemed like there was a moment where he kind of cracked in a way. I don't know if crack's the right word, but just sort of like threw away his whole body of work and then just started again. Like that was really dramatic.
Yeah, he did the John Baldessari. Do you know the John Baldessari story?
What's that?
He did a similar thing when he had all of this old work, and then he got to a point, and I don't remember the story of why, but he got to a point to where he realized he was going to go a different direction, and it had nothing to do with his old work. So he grabbed all of it, started a fire, and burned all of it, and then called it, he either called that a work, like a performance, and said, I will never make bad art again or something, and just repeated it like you were drawing it on, I don't remember how it was exactly. It was like you were drawing it on like
a Bart Simpson chalkboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're like, I will never make bad art again. I will never make bad art again. And it was his whole thing, like kind of getting rid of the past. And so I thought when he did that, I'm like, it's such a like, must have been so cathartic, especially him talking about or explaining his old work as being so specific and like beautiful, perfect stretched watercolor paper with like perfect paintings, and everything looked like it was almost printed out of a computer. To go from that to then what he shows now is like, you can see why he's like, yeah, I'm done with that. And now I'm on to this new thing that's more like less what I think art is and or what I think art should be, to go to like what I think art is. I think it seems like.
Wow. Yeah,
What do you?
I get so wrapped up in my own brain, I guess, and when thinking about it, because I guess coming from a place of music where it always just feels like I don't know, like even if I deleted a bunch of music, everything's all out online now. You know what I mean? Like the music just exists, even if I were to never play those songs again. That's like there's a relationship with time. I think that
Yeah,
happens in a musical sort of way.
yeah,
I guess if nobody had heard them, or if I just had records that I'd never released and then I broke them, or then destroyed them so that no one would ever hear it, I guess that'd be the closest equivalent to it. But
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know. I just feel like there's
music is
also a sense
different
of
though.
time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go
Oh
ahead.
no, sorry. No, I just think there's a sense of like time. Like, well, that was this place and this time that created those things. That was who I was there. And I think
Yeah,
you have a chance every second to sort of reinvent yourself and to kind of become
totally,
someone new in each new phase, and then change again, and then change and change.
totally.
You can do that.
But I think that you, from listening to your stories, you've always come from that place of like, uh, I mean, you first started by recording, like you like taking apart electronics and like messing with electronics and like making weird tapes in your bedroom that were like very art, like the idea of it being art was there from the very beginning, and not just like, I'm going to learn chords and then I'm going to learn scales and then I'm going to learn how to be really proficient at guitar and then I'm
Oh
going to
yeah.
write pop songs and then I'm like, so I think like maybe if you started that way first and then like 10 years later we're like, whoa, wait, I don't want to play just the blues. I want to repurpose like electronic weird noises and make tapes in my bedroom. Then
Right.
maybe you'd be like, yeah, let's burn all those old blues tapes quick. Don't tell anyone.
Oh
But
my
also
gosh.
music doesn't exist. It's not like a
Right.
physical, like a music is an idea, and then you either have to have someone play it or you have to have a machine to play it. But other than that, it's like just an idea that's floating around, which I think is
Ooh.
different than music, which is why I think it's hard to like the music industry went for a, like was very profitable for a while because of the price of plastic, right? Like
Yeah.
they figured out how to make records, and they're like, oh, it's $1 to make a record, and we can sell it for $10. Oh, there's a great profit here, and you can pay for everybody's salary because of this plastic. And then once the plastic went away, and it's like, wait, how are we charging for this thing? Oh, live shows, okay. I mean,
Yeah. Ish.
you can only go out and play live shows for so long. The live shows don't keep selling themselves.
Right. Right. It's wild. Yeah.
It is
It,
weird.
yeah. I always think of, that there's some kind of older tradition of sort of, campfire songs or something, or this,
Totally.
that there's a reason they exist the way they, the reason, there's a reason music's important the way it is. But, who's, well, yeah. It's coming up in some future interviews. We can get to it, but I think the idea was brought up. I'm sorry, I'm living a little bit in the future. I've recorded a few more of
No,
these,
go for it.
but just the idea that maybe I'm too hung up on even just the money of all of it. That really, at the end of the day, that music is supposed to just be fun, and that's just really it.
Yeah.
And that like 99% of the world just thinks of the music they make as fun and has no relationship to it ever making money.
Well, again, I think
Yeah.
like music is communication. So it's like, so you can either choose to try to make money from that communication somehow, or it can just be fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think art is the same way. I think even with Joel, he's a teacher, right? He's a
Yeah.
teacher at the community college, and
Yeah.
he's like, dude, it's the best job. I love it. It's the best job ever. But also, when you have a job, he now gets to make whatever art he wants, because it's like he doesn't have to try to necessarily pay his bills. I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah.
he gets paid enough to where he doesn't have to pay his bills by his artwork. And so then you get to be free to be like, oh, okay. So now I can just make the thing that I want people, like that I want to communicate to people. And I think that's why, I mean, speaking of Baldessari or Catherine Opie and all of those people, they're all professors, And like, I don't know, I'm sure Baldessari raked it in money wise, but even like a lot of those bigger artists, I don't think they make as much money as people think. They're all like full-time professors, and mostly people teach or have kind of another thing. And even like when they're selling, I mean, I went through this with a buddy of mine, of someone, because I shoot paintings for a lot of artists, and I was speaking with somebody and who is a successful commercial artist and is also painting, and he was running me through how long it takes him to do it, because his paintings are very detailed and they almost look like prints. I guess it was kind of similar to what Joel was talking about with his watercolors. But he was like, yeah, no, that's 7 layers of paint. So that color, because I have to repaint it 7 times. And this one is, and we went through the hours of his paintings, and his painting, like they were these massive paintings, and they were like 20, I don't know what they were, $25,000 or something. But he went through the hours, and then he's like, yeah, so you split that with the gallery, so that's 12,000. And then this painting takes like 2 months of time. And so he's like $6,000 a month. He's like, it's like a job. And that's not counting like the paint and the canvas, like just the canvas costs like almost $1,000. And then, just going through these things is like, yeah, this is not like a way to make money. Like even when you're selling these things, it's like, oh, this is this exorbitant price. And you're like, well, that cost $900 just to get the frame for that. Like the framing is
there are materials involved. Yeah. But then even look at like the gallery side, you see, think, oh, but they have half. What are they doing with that? And then you probably figure out whatever their rent or mortgage is on wherever they are at, and whatever cool part of town they cost them just to keep their lights on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine like the top 5% of galleries maybe are making like an okay profit, like from selling, like from having shows and selling work. And the majority of the other part is them being like the go-between of like, hey, we want someone who has a Jonas Wood basketball painting. Ooh, I know someone who's gonna wants to sell one. Okay, hold on. And then you get your 10% for like doing the deal. That's how like Gagosian and all those, a lot of their money is that backdoor. I mean, and it's like they know all the people who have all the stuff, right? They know all the people who's like, oh, that person bought that painting from us 10 years ago. Let me see if he wants to sell it. Oh, it's just oh yeah, it's worth 3 times as much. Great. So we'll sell it, and they make their 10%, and then they make their 10% every single time. And then eventually,
that's amazing.
You're a massive gallery,
because you can't just list your fancy painting on OfferUp or or Craigslist. You're not just going to put it up
that
there.
Might devalue. Might devalue just a little bit. Wow. OfferUp gallery.
Yeah,
biggest gallery in the world.
They need galleries for equipment. I guess there's a few small places like that. Like, hey, so and so is trying to sell an amp. Like, okay, we can get this fancy, this famous person's amp to this other famous person. Yeah, I'm sure that exists in some form.
Oh, it has to. Everybody has
vintage gear dealers.
Everyone has a hustle, man.
That's it.
Nothing would happen without the hustlers.
Oh man, cool. Well, yeah, I'm enjoying this Providence five fucking Thursdays theme month. I think so far it's going well. This is week 2 into it. And then coming up this week we have Brian Chippendale.
Oh, I'm excited
on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. It was good to catch up with him. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about on the next one.
I know. I remember I can my first time that I experienced lightning bolt, speaking of next week.
Yeah.
Is that I was over at my friend Bruce's house, and he's like, dude, I just got this video. You got to watch this. And it might not even have been a DVD. It might have been a VHS.
Oh, yeah.
And so he puts this VHS in. He's like, I can't even explain this. Shows it. And it's the Lightning Bolt tour video that they put out in like
the Power of Salad,
2000, something.
Yeah.
And it's them like at one point they're playing in someone's kitchen in Texas, maybe. And they're set up. And if you know, like, it's Lightning Bolt, they're one of the loudest bands that
this huge stack of amps.
Yeah, huge stack of amps and drums and the microphone and the face mask and the whole thing. And it's these just like hicks in Texas that just look like country kids. And they're freaking out in the and it goes from that, and then it's like someone else's house, and then they're playing in a, I don't know, parking garage, and then they're playing, and we just sat there and didn't turn the video off and just watched, and I'm like, what is this real? Is this a joke? Like, these, how did they even get these shows? What's going on? And that was my first, like, so I'm excited to hear the Brian one too. But and it seemed like that was like listening to Joel, like that was the vibe for that whole scene of like how they both talked about how it wasn't like you were just in a band, like everyone was involved. So it was like you were either in a band that was playing, or if you were watching, you were either going to play, or you had already played, or you were going to play next week, or you were going to do a performance, or you were dressed up for the show as a character, or you were like building out Fort Thunder, or it was just like, it just seemed like everybody was involved. And I feel like he brought up the community, like build your own community, right? Like the second that you're trying to be a part of a community that already exists, then it's probably past its prime. Like when you're younger.
Right.
I think that was like, and again, I can bring up You and The Smell, and of like, that thing just happened. Like all of a sudden you would go to The Smell and be like, where all these bands come from? Like there was so many more bands, and it wasn't like, oh, a band touring through. All of a sudden it was like all these local kids, and then it was packed, and then everybody was like, oh, they're from Mika Miko. Oh, they're from, oh wait, this band, that band, and everybody was in a band, or they were like trying to write for the LA Weekly, or they were like taking photos, and it was this thing that it just happened so organically, but it was a group of people. And I think that's happening in art here now, like a bunch of people that when we had our gallery, that there was like a bunch of people who were starting out. And at that moment, like a lot of those people have like organically created this LA scene where they all slowly were like getting shows together. Oh, this person is working for this gallery, this da 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 da, and now a lot of those artists that kind of maybe figured it out together. I don't know. I think that there's and then a lot of those people are writers now, also like started like Carla magazine, started all of these local things, and then slowly now a lot of those artists are getting in with bigger galleries and stuff. And I think it's like there's something to be said about like the group, the energy of a group kind of carrying the group.
Yeah, well, you have something to bounce off of. I think you're not just feeling like you're spinning out in a void. There's something about having that community around you. You can kind of like get immediate feedback on ideas, or whether it's, songs or paintings or performances. You have something to kind of bounce off of, and it'll maybe inspire ideas. I think that's how I felt early on with doing stuff with The Smell. It was sort of like we'd write a song at practice and like, oh, I wonder how so-and-so is going to like this song, because I know they're going to be at the show because they're always at the show, or something that would do that kind of immediate sort of thing of like, oh, I bet people will laugh at this part. Like that funny guitar part is like kind of an inside joke, but I'm going to, so when I do that, it'll be funny. They'll notice it.
Yeah.
And I remember that kind of being one of those early sort of things of like, oh, we're playing for people that I don't know. There's a bunch of strangers here, as the band had some popularity or notoriety, and then it definitely felt different. And I'm like, oh, this isn't the same thing. And then going into practice, like, am I writing songs for strangers now? Like, I don't know how to write songs for strangers. Like, I can.
Good. That's a good album title, actually. Songs for Strangers.
It'll be the next solo record. Yeah, it's a funny one because you don't really know but again, that talks to about the intention of making art or making music. But I think a community can sort of provide that protection early on.
Right.
And there's some validation in a small sort of way, especially when you're starting out and not really sure of what your own identity or your own sort of like artistic identity is, or your point of view, or what you're trying to get across. Like having those communities is huge.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I guess you're able to trust a lot of those people, or all of them, to like their taste and their like if they came up and I'm like, I don't know, what was that last song? What are you guys trying to do? You'd be like, oh, I never really thought about it that way, because you actually respect but then it's a good way to put something out and watch it bounce back and see sometimes I've done that where love something, like even someone else's song, like, oh my God, you got to listen to this song, and then I play it for someone and then I look at them and I go, huh, this isn't a good song, is it? Oh, this was such a great song. Why am I getting a weird vibe?
Why is everybody giving me the stink face?
Interesting. I remember. I'm going to listen to this in a different way from now on.
We were talking about Jennifer from Mika Miko and Bleached earlier before the mics before started rolling. But I remember early on, because she used to date Dean from No Age, and when I remember we were playing somewhere, and I think, well, I can be very specific about it. I remember she came with us to the first time we went to Japan on tour, and we were writing songs for Nouns, I feel like around that time, or had just finished writing Nouns, our first record for Sub Pop. And I remember coming off stage somewhere, I remember it was Osaka, and on stage, she's like, I like that song that sounds like Smashing Pumpkins 1979. And I just looked at her like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I don't have any songs that sound like that. She's like, the one that does the thing. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But it was so I think if she would have told me that before we'd recorded it, it probably would have caused me to go back and change the part if I could, figure out what it was. But I think by that point it had already been recorded but hadn't come out or something like that. But I remember it was like, looking back, I don't think she meant it as an insult. I think she probably meant oh, that's cool. That's a song that's on the radio.
It's heavier.
That's cool. Or, or that's a good part. But in my mind, I was so just insulted. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm ripping off Billy Corgan's giant radio hits. That does not sound original.
You're not calling me Corgan, are you?
Yeah.
You saying I'm Corgan? I'm not Corgan.
What? But it's that kind of, but it's a response from the community, and it just makes me laugh thinking about it. Well, why didn't you tell me that before?
Yeah.
But I think upon further review, I think I went through each song with her later. I'm like, tell me where it is. What is this part? I have to know. What the hell are you hearing? Because I'm not hearing this.
Yeah.
And then we figured it out, and I'm like, no, your ears are just broken. That's not that part is at all. I can safely say I can safely play that part now. And
you're like,
it's
big
the
sigh of relief
song. Yeah. Okay. Did I accidentally rip off? I mean, it could happen. I'm not, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I remember at that time too, I think there was just such a, we're a new band and trying to do new songs, and you feel, make a new statement. And then if there was secretly a Billy Corgan riff, I would have felt mortified.
Well, especially at that point. I mean, that was only 4 or 5 years probably after that song was written.
Maybe a little bit, but something like that. It was would have been very.
I guess maybe 10. Yeah, maybe 10. But it wasn't 30. It wasn't cool 90s.
The tribute thing. Yeah. But I love that immediate response from a community member or from something like that. And I've definitely there'd be other friends or give you a hard time or something, or make fun of you and you'd make fun of them, and that's what it was all about. That's what it was fun. Sometimes you create bands just as a joke. This guy's always talking shit. We should start a band and just make a really dumb band for one night.
Yeah. I actually heard of someone who was a recording, an engineer who had a band, and he had his cool band that he loved, and then he started kind of a joke band with a bigger artist, and they were just played some oh, we're gonna do this metal thing,
and that band went on to become LCDC or no, LCD Sound System.
That band became huge, or bigger than his other band. And then he was just never start a joke band, man.
What band was that?
What's that?
What band was it?
I mean, it wasn't a joke band, but it was what is it? It was Alex Newport. And he had Fudge Tunnel, which was his 90s band.
Okay.
And then he did
that sounds like a joke band.
Nail Bomb. I think, was with the guy from Sepultura.
Oh, okay.
But it was like it was just like heavy.
But Sepultura will get you that. I think their fans
and he
are
was just like, oh my God, this has got. And sorry, Alex, I don't want to be like putting you out
there. No,
but it was more just like, oh my God, this got bigger than the band that I was in. This song or the EP or whatever they recorded.
I love those stories though of the like, oh, this song was a joke and then it became the biggest hit. Or like, we weren't going to put that on there, but they said we had to put it on there. I love that. I've wanted one of those experiences my entire career. I'm like, no, the song's terrible. What? And then you have the top 40 hit or the top 10 hit. And like, I don't think we've ever written a bad song, but there's also, but there's those moments of like, I don't know. You hear these stories like
you want your Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean,
right?
You know the story of that one, right? It was like the last one.
Okay.
They hadn't recorded it.
Okay.
And they had it and they record. And then I think it was just Butch Vig was like, well, we got to record that one. We need one more or whatever. And then they recorded it and they were so worried that everybody was going to call them out for ripping off the Pixies.
Oh,
they were like,
wasn't it Sticks? Wasn't it more than a feeling?
Well, yeah, there's that, but just the slow, loud, quiet, like loud. The loud, quiet, and the like, like the lyrics are very like Frank Black kind of.
Oh, how funny
craziness, and that's what I feel like that was like a Dave Grohl thing. He's like, honestly, we are like, really that's what you're gonna choose for the. Oh God! Everybody's just going to be like, "Oh, ripping off the Pixies." Turns out nobody else knew who the Pixies was.
Yeah,
other than
good for Nirvana, bad for the Pixies.
Yeah, yeah.
But ultimately, probably good for the Pixies in the long run. I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
that gave them a lot of juice. But the one thing that always happened to us is we would always have one more song that wasn't quite finished. And so we were recording and it was an idea or kind of a spark. And then it would just be like, but it's not really done. Let's just, we'll say this is the album. That one, we have to keep writing on that one. And then that would get held over. And then that'd be the first one we'd record for the next record. Oh, and inevitably those would become kind of the singles for the next record. It was kind of the holdover from the last record. It was sort of the bridge.
The one that you spent. Would you play that song live and try to work it out live and stuff?
Exactly. So we probably spent more time messing with it live and figuring it out in between because we'd go on the tour for the previous record tour and then add in this new song and like, hey, this is a fun new song and play it a bunch and then probably refine it and then we'd go in and write new ones and then hold over because it was the what was that Fever Dreaming was the kind of the single off of this our second record, but we had that ready around the Nouns time. And same thing with like Eraser or maybe even Teen Creeps or something in there from it's just like whatever the song that was the standout song from the record was always kind of hanging around longer than the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah,
you get the most time with it.
Yeah, I think that always helps. Yeah, we did when we took kind of a break between the Sub Pop records and the Drag City records, and then we actually did a tour. We booked a U.S. tour, I think like 8 dates just around, or not U.S. Sorry, a California tour, just kind of from L.A. to San Francisco and Sacramento and back, just to play all those new songs before we recorded them. And I think it helped. It definitely helped just having even just that many live dates of just playing new songs.
Yeah.
It kind of gave
you can watch people and see like, oh, that part didn't work. And that part worked.
Or fix them up. Yeah. And even just watch yourself. Like if you find, we start getting bored for that part, like, really? We're going there for a fourth time? Does this song really need a fourth verse? Like, I'm pretty sure it starts to sag or we're getting bored or we start, looking at our shoes or looking around. Like, then you go, okay, that's enough. Let's go ahead and
take notes. You have your little notepad on stage. Like, let's see.
No, it's a lot of looks.
Cut that up.
It's a lot of like, you think so? Really? I don't know. That part? And then we talk after, like, yeah, cut that part. Okay, tomorrow night we'll do it differently. And then you kind of get to just rehearse it, and just sort of knock out all the bugs.
That's
make
cool.
Sure it's a tight song. But
I love that.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things too. But again, it's the same whether, even if you can't tour it, but if you can just play, as many times, that's what they always say, like you have your whole life to write your first record and about 6 months to write your second one.
Yeah.
Those always kind of have the sophomore slump. Like, well, why that record doesn't sound as good as the first one?
Yeah. Yeah, because we didn't have it in our heads and weren't playing it for years.
Yeah. And then somehow, bands figure it out. But I feel like Weezer was like that, right? Like that first record was good, the blue one. And then the second one, I don't know what the second one was.
The second one,
Was that the personal
was
one?
like not like wasn't the second one the
So Pinkerton?
Pinkerton?
Yeah.
Was it Pinkerton?
I think so, but I guess that became a different story. That was his like
And then
personal
that was
going
like
to college.
everybody didn't like it, but then now that's like the classic one.
So funny. But I feel like Rivers, he's like one of those, he like figured out an algorithm or code to write pop songs. He just writes by like, you know, he's the first kind of like AI songwriter. Or at least he has been, maybe his whole life. I don't know. But at least in the last like 17 albums they've put out, he just knows like, oh, the song will need 3 chords and with this kind of consecutive notes in the melody. And then that'll be our pop song and then everything else.
Well, they were definitely one of those bands that you'd hear the new song that would come out and you thought it was a joke.
Right.
And then you'd be like, oh God, again, this is like, this song is not going to go. This song's not going to go anywhere. And then it becomes like massive, and then it comes on, and I'm singing it, and I'm like, how am I singing? Oh. Wait, he got Weezered. I got Weezered.
Weezered. Porky Beans. Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely. It was the Beverly Hills song. Yeah. That's the song I heard. That I remember hearing that on the radio and going, "What?
This is horrific."
Come on.
Did they pay somebody?
That becomes like their biggest song ever.
Yeah, or same with whatever, like the Offspring. Remember how terrible that band was?
Oh my God!
But it just felt like but I feel like it was almost like writing to the prompt. Like there was like an advertising agency that needed a song, and they just wrote to that.
I mean, they were the biggest selling independent artist of all time for a long time.
Offspring.
I don't know if they still are.
Horrific.
Yeah. I mean, they built that
Epitaph Mansion.
Epitaph. Yeah.
But it just doesn't feel like anything. It's like, well, like, yeah, like, congratulations. Like, oh, wow. You know what sells? Like, wow. Sugar, salt, and fat sells. Like, what?
Turns out it works.
What? No. You mean if I just make this dish like 10 times sweeter, everyone's going to really like it? My kids will like this food if it's all sugar with a side of sugar.
And it will make them fall asleep after this. And I'm in. Yeah, I shot photos of them once for one of those. It was like a MySpace secret show, and they played it in Pomona.
Well, I'm sure they're really nice people.
Yeah, it was fine. But I mean, they were nice, yeah. But when they played the show, it was like in a was that the Glass House? I don't remember where it was, but that they played for like 2 hours, and I knew every song.
Oh my God.
I was like, how do I know this many Offspring songs?
That's right.
I knew all of them.
Because you listened to alternative radio from 93 to 2003.
I was like, they'd play another one. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot how massive of a band they were. But Green Day, the same thing. I did like a thing, shot them live again for one of the MySpace things. And they played in San Francisco, and they played, an hour and a half, 2 hours, knew every song. I'm like, I don't know if I probably bought Dookie. I probably had that record, but I haven't bought any Green Day records since then. And I knew all of the songs. Like, they have this many radio songs. It's insane.
Yeah. Yep. Some people are just blessed that way.
Blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Too blessed to be stressed.
That was pre hashtag blessed.
Oh my God. All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap it up here before I talk more shit about Green Day and Offspring and jeopardize my epitaph advertising campaign.
Those ad dollars are not coming in.
All that Mr. Brett advertising dollars. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, we will be back. So we got Chippendale coming up this Thursday, and we'll be back next Monday. Everybody stay safe out there. Watch the roads. Don't get stuck in a K-hole. Don't get flooded out.
Yeah.
In the water.
Any kind of hole. No holes.
No holes. Don't get stuck anywhere. We'll see you next Monday.
Bye. Bye.